The Honorable Mutahi Kagwe, EGH, Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture in the Republic of Kenya, and the chief guest of today's event, Cosmas Milton Obote Ochieng, Director, CFND, Economic Committee for Africa, Khalid El Wahil, United Nations Food Systems and Coordination Hub Director, Zainab Hawa Bangura, under the Secretary General and Director General of the Union, Hamisi William, Assistant FAOR Kenya, ministers and country delegates from Africa, principal secretaries present, and I know in other countries they are called permanent secretaries. We had mentioned them earlier on. Would like to recognize you in a special way, together with the host principal secretary, Dr. Kiprono Rono, who is in our midst today, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Fourth Estate, my colleagues, good morning. Come on, United Nations, good morning. Good morning. That's better. I'd almost call this meeting off so that we have it on Zoom. But anyway, great. I can see a few of you laughing, so that's a good sign. You look beautiful from here. I'd like to recognize you by greeting you in your country's way. Let's start with the people I love the most from the West. Nigerians, Bawoni, Ikaro. Very nice, good to see you. South Africa, Sawubona Bazalwane. South Africa, there you go. French speakers, bonjour à tous. Very nice. Malawi, Mulibwanji. Ghana, Etesen. Very nice. And lastly, Ethiopian, Salem. Good to see all of you. And I'd like to officially welcome you on the established protocols to the African Regional Preparatory Meeting towards the United Nations Food Systems Summit, the fourth one that is coming. Ladies and gentlemen, and the honorable chief guest, more than ever before, we are faced with the reality of climate change and how it's affecting how we feed our citizens. More than ever before, there's a clarion call towards food sovereignty and food security. And this, among so many other reasons, are why we are here today to discuss and forge ways forward and to see sustainable ways of making sure that our countries are food sovereign and done in a sustainable way. And most importantly, also to look at how we are adapting to realities of our time right now, like climate change. My name is Brian George Otieno. I am a news anchor, business reporter at Nation Media Group's Broadcasting Television, NTV. I will be your moderator and MC for the day, but I'm not flying alone. I have a co-pilot or a first officer. I'd like to invite to you for introduction and for establishing housekeeping, Miss Charity Mbithe, an equally global and competent MC. Most welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to see you here. Welcome to the Revolution event on Karimu, Kenya. Amazing. My name is MC Charity Mbithe, as I am introduced by my amazing co-host, Brian George, and I have the absolute honor and joy of being your master of ceremony for this important gathering. And so I know today is not a day of kind regards. Please find a touch. I hope this event finds you well. I hope you can be able to just focus on the conversation as we drive this actionable change in Africa. And so, moving on shortly, I would like to welcome us to the housekeeping rules. First and foremost, in accordance with the Global Data Protection and Privacy Regulations, that includes the General Data Protection Regulation, that is the GDPR, we wish to inform all of you that we will be taking photographs and videos of the event. So if you have an issue, kindly raise your hand. We have amazing ushers who are dressed in black. So if you have an issue with you being captured, I kindly request you to raise your hand at this point, and the ushers will be able to note you down. Going once, going twice, going. Thank you. Next, housekeeping rule, kindly ensure that your mobile phones are set to silent mode during the sessions, just to help us focus and just contribute to the sessions without interruptions. We will have scheduled coffee breaks from 10:30 to 11, 12 to 1:30 p.m., 2:30 to 2:45, We aim to end the program at 4:30 p.m. sharp East African time. So the first session is going to cover investment financing cases from the perspectives of development partners, governments, and SMEs, and it will highlight practical business models for food systems transformation. We have the next session coming up after tea break that will explore financing and investment opportunities for food systems transformation in the Africa region. And then on shortly, we'll have the practical country examples of resilience and social protection in response to fragility. And that will also include strategies to support vulnerable communities during national and human-induced shocks. And of course, we'll end on a high note after lunch. We will highlight practical experiences, the lessons and insights on interministerial coordination. Now, for the sake of our convenience, we have our restrooms located to your right as you exit the plenary room. So simply take a right at the exit, and you'll find a clear signage guiding you to the facilities at the top of the building, so on the right. And then for your safety as well, please familiarize yourself with the emergency exits. You can see there's one on my right. Please don't use, good thing on the ground floor, so we're not going to use it. And again, just to make us feel more comfortable, we need, the fire station actually is just across the road. Nothing will happen, we are very safe in here. But yeah, don't run, please be composed, breathe in, breathe out in the event of a fire. But we promise you that, or rather we do hope that that won't happen. All right, and then during the session, please be mindful of time. Sessions will start and end promptly as scheduled. So in the spirit of respecting everyone's contribution, let's kindly keep time, and even when you're called upon to go for breaks, for lunch, group photo sessions, movement between the rooms, we'll kindly request you to do so quickly and efficiently. Now, if you have any questions or require assistance, feel free to approach the event staff. Like I said, they are located near the exit in very nice black dresses. We encourage your active participation and respectful engagement during the sessions. And as you're already seated, the seating arrangements have been clearly identified in accordance with the country delegates. So yeah, I think that's it. Welcome, karibu sana. In my tribe, I come from the Kamba language, and we say Nina Modocha. Everybody say Nina Modocha. That just means that you are more than welcome. So thank you for your cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as I welcome my fellow co-host back on stage, Brian George.
Thank you, Charity. I just noticed I forgot to pay homage to the Kenyans, the host country, and please let's do this in a beautiful round of applause. Let me greet the Kenyans, my people. Habari ya asubuhi. Muko salama? Muko fiti? Very nice. Joturu oyaore. Uchieo. Muriega. Muriega rege. Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, and honorable CS and our chief guest, I'd like to ride on the established protocol to now give invitations to our speakers for the day, who are going to give us beautiful speeches and keynotes that will guide the 3 days that are ahead of us. Allow me now to first welcome the Senior Program Coordinator, UN Food Systems, the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub, the Senior Programs Coordinator, Mr. Khalid Elta Will. Most welcome, sir. Let's appreciate him as he comes.
Thank you so much, moderator. Good morning. Karibu, asante sana. Honorable Matoi Kagwe, EGH Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, Dr. Stephen Jackson, Resident Coordinator in Kenya, Mr. Cosmos Obote Oshwang, Director, UN Economic Commission for Africa, Ms. Estrine Fotabong, Director of Agriculture, Food Security and Environmental Sustainability, UNIPAD, esteemed national conveners, and dear colleagues. It's an honor to address the third Africa Regional Food Systems Preparatory Meeting on behalf of the UN Food System Coordination Hub. I would like to begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to the government of Kenya for its exemplary leadership in hosting this important meeting. Our gratitude also goes to FAO, the UN country team, the African Union, UNECA for their vital partnership in co-organizing this event. Esteemed national convener, today is the fifth of 5 regional preparatory meetings that the Hub has organized with the UN system and regional partners in the last few months. We meet just 83 days before the UN Food System Summit, scheduled to take place on African soil in Addis Ababa from the 27th to 29th of July, co-hosted by Ethiopia and Italy. The summits come at a critical point of multilateral cooperation as we face rising geopolitical challenges and systemic uncertainties. Food security indicators are declining in many countries, and our global food systems are exerting increasing pressure on the environmental and biodiversity and the health of soils and freshwater resources. Despite the profound challenges, Africa continues to demonstrate remarkable resilience and commitment. The continent's journeys through the CAADP framework from Maputo to Malabo and Kampala embodies a clear and ambitious food system vision, prioritizing not only food security and food production, but also creating employment opportunities, fostering entrepreneurship, boosting value addition, and promoting climate-smart, market-oriented solutions. This holistic approach emphasizes the importance of strengthening institutional capacities, fostering interministerial coordination, governance, and accountability. These are the foundational elements needed to unlock the full potential of Africa's agri-food systems. As national conveners, your leadership continues to be critical in steering this effort forward, supported by the Food Systems Hub and the broader UN system to accelerate Africa's progress towards the SDGs and Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063 of the African Union. Over the next 3 days, we have a unique opportunity to develop an African position for the UNFS+4, a position that showcases your successes, lessons learned, but also highlights the challenges ahead. It is also a chance to learn from each other and propose solutions that enhance cross-border and multi-stakeholder collaboration. As we approach the summit, we need to capitalize on the power of food systems to reverse the situation in the continent, which is increasingly affected by conflicts, climate change, and economic shocks. 1 in 5 Africans suffer from hunger, and 3 out of 4 cannot afford healthy diets. Malnutrition, both undernutrition and obesity, remains a significant hindrance to human capital and sustainable development. Although Africa contributes only 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions, it remains highly vulnerable to climate impacts which threaten agricultural productivity, food security, and livelihood. Agricultural productivity remains below the global average, hindered by factors such as increased insecure land tenure, limited investment in soil health, and land degradation. Social and gender inequalities are widening, with women and girls disproportionately affected by economic and environmental shocks. Public investment in agriculture are still below the levels needed, and fewer than half of EU member states are on track to allocate the targeted 10% of their budget to agriculture in line with the Malabo Declaration. Looking ahead, the Food Systems Summit process marked a strategic shift toward integrated, resilient, and sustainable food systems. This is aligned with Africa's vision of a healthy and prosperous Africa, emphasizing innovation, technology such as digital agriculture, mechanization, climate-smart practices, and innovation-driven solutions to boost productivity and reduce risks. Regional integration through initiatives such as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area will be critical in expanding intra-African trade, improving market access, and stabilizing food supplies across borders. Agro-industrialization and value addition can unlock vast potential for job creation, wealth generation, and economic diversification. Your collective efforts, anchored in political commitment, innovation, and partnership, can prioritize resilience building, particularly against climate change, conflicts, and economic shocks, if we are to progress on ending hunger and malnutrition. As we are getting into the Food Systems Summit +4 preparation, CAADP implementation and experiences give Africa a lot to share in progress being made and impact achieved on various fronts of agri-food systems. A comprehensive food system approach underpinned by strong political will, increased investment, and national ownership is critical for addressing the challenges ahead. Monitoring supported by data and review mechanisms such as the CAADP biennial review is essential for measuring progress, identifying gaps, and ensuring accountability. Sustainable financing which will be very critical in the summit, and capacity development, ensuring predictable, adequate funding and strengthening institutions are fundamental for achieving our shared ambitions. We look forward to your insights, exchanges of experiences, and the collaborative commitment over the coming days as we prepare for the impactful discussion and the UN Food System Summit. Thank you. Asante Sana.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khalid. Allow me now to invite, instead of Zainab Hawa, allow me to invite the United Nations Kenya Resident Coordinator, Dr. Stephen Jackson, to speak to us. Dr. Stephen.
Asante sana. Mheshimiwa Waziri, mawaziri, viongozi, mabalozi, na marafiki hamjambo, which I think is the most economical and also most Kenyan way of welcoming you all on behalf of Her Excellency the Deputy Secretary General and also Her Excellency the Director General of UNON to this highly important gathering. It's a real honor to have you all from all parts of the continent and beyond here on the UN headquarters campus at Gigiri, one of the 4 global headquarters, as you know, and the only one here in the Global South. I'll be relatively brief and I'll try and be quite concrete. First of all, for me, transforming Africa's food systems hold the key to a sustainable future, not just for Africa, but for the world. We know, and His Excellency President Ruto reminds us of this quite frequently, that Africa has 2/3 of the remaining uncultivated arable land on the planet. And so if we are to move to a future that is one of food security for all, sustainably ensured, Africa holds the key. And realizing the promise and the opportunity of that transformation is really a critical part of the overall journey towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, in the United Nations, Waziri, we have a bit of a habit of making things too complicated sometimes. And sometimes when I look at the food systems paradigm and I see a lot of big words, and I think we need to strip it back and be very clear what we're saying. We're saying to realize that promise, to realize that transformation, we need simply to understand better and focus our attention on transforming every link in that chain. So starting from when the farmer plants her seedlings, to how she cultivates them, to when and how they're harvested, to how they're stored, to how they're aggregated and who does that, how we avoid post-harvest loss on the route, how we get to value addition, and eventually how it reaches the table. How it reaches the table safely, securely, and profitably for everybody in that chain, but particularly putting money in the pockets of that farmer who began that journey. That, for me, simply put, is the food system. And we have to think about every link in that chain, how we strengthen every link in that chain, where we need technical assistance, where it can come from, and where, crucially, we need financing. And one of the things I find most exciting, actually, about this entire initiative is the 3FS tool, which I'm sure is going to be talked about this week, financial flows to food systems, which is a way of tracking that and really looking at where the weak links in the chain are. But let me be even more concrete than that and talk about one specific food system just to illustrate the point, and it's one on which Kenya is working very hard, and I think it's one reason why this august meeting has come to Kenya today, and that's the food system around school feeding. Kenya's gone on an extraordinary journey since the 1980s when school feeding was first established here. We know how important school feeding is to nutrition, to health outcomes for kids, but also for keeping kids in school on the regular and providing a lifeline when crisis hits. And I saw that myself during the Kenya drought of 2023. But what Kenya has done is to make an extraordinary pledge to go to universal school feeding by 2030. That would be 10 million kids a day being fed, up from the present 2.5 million is roughly where we are. So increasing it by a factor of 4. Doing so primarily on national resources, but, and this is crucial, thinking about every link in that chain. So right now, a lot of the food that is put on the table for the kids who are lucky enough to get those meals is imported. But there's a market opportunity lost for Kenyan growers and Kenyan smallholders to be growing food that's needed for those meals, to the standard that's required for those meals, with the regularity, the reliability, and the safety standards needed for those meals. Then there's the opportunity for the private sector actors to come in and aggregate that food, to help prepare it, and to get it to those kids in the school. There's the opportunity to build in clean cooking technology. So all the way along those links in the chain, in that system, there are things that one can think about, things that one can fine-tune, things that one can take to scale. And it's thinking in that systems way that is so critical. And of course, systems thinking is right at the heart of the Sustainable Development Journey and of the Sustainable Development Goals. All 17 of the SDGs are mutually interdependent. You can't achieve one without working on 16. The UN is a champion, therefore, for systems thinking. I do apologize, Waziri, that sometimes we can make it seem more complicated than that, but that's what it comes down to, is working across the entirety of those links in the chain so that we really maximize the opportunity. I'm really excited that Kenya is hosting this meeting. I think there are extraordinary things being done within food systems transformation in Kenya. I've cited just one example, there are so many more, but we're really anxious, if I can use the agricultural metaphor, to harvest the wisdom of the continent in this meeting, so that we then go to Addis with a common position and a loud and insistent voice that says Africa is ready to put transformed food systems at the service of itself and of the world for the good and, yes, for the profit of everybody, so that food systems transformation can be the motor that powers the Sustainable Development Journey on this continent. I'll just finish, Waziri, by saying that the upcoming stock-taking meeting in Addis is one key locus for that discussion, but there are others. We need to have an energetic discussion about financing for food systems transformation at the Financing for Development Summit in Seville, to which President Ruto will travel at the end of June. And of course, also, crucially, at COP30, continuing to change the debate at COP from being at loggerheads about obstacles to being together about capitalizing on opportunities. And so this meeting couldn't be more timely, couldn't be more important, and it's my great honor to add my words of welcome to you all. Asanteni sana na karibuni.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen Jackson, United Nations Resident Coordinator here in Kenya, for the thoughtful and grounding address. Yes, so the next speaker brings with him deep expertise in sustainability, governance, and inclusive development. This ECA plays a pivotal role in strengthening Africa's economic and social development by providing the rigorous research, policy guidance, and regional coordination, all of which are very instrumental and very fundamental to the transformation of our continent's food systems. Now, building on that powerful message from Dr. Stephen Jackson, it's my pleasure to welcome the next speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Cosmas Milton Obote Ochieng, the Director of the Climate Change, Food Systems and Natural Resources Division at the UNECA. Thank you.
The Honorable Cabinet Secretary, Resident Coordinator, Dr. Stephen Jackson, Dr. Khalid Al-Chawal, Mr. Williams, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be very brief. First of all, it's back to be Nairobi, and thank you very much to Hayamba Africa for the great music this morning. This meeting is very timely in the sense that it's time for urgent and bold action. We are 5 years away from 2030, and Africa is not on track to meet its food security and nutrition targets of the Sustainable Development Goals or the Malabo targets on ending hunger and all forms of malnutrition. As the resident coordinator so eloquently put it, transforming our food systems can be a catalyst to achieving the rest of the SDGs and some of the priorities under Agenda 2063. Yet the funding gap for food system transformation remains significant and a critical challenge. Many of the countries represented here need targeted investments in sustainable agriculture, in addressing food loss and waste, in improving access and use of climate information services. So new approaches, strategic partnerships, governance frameworks, and most importantly, funding models are needed to accelerate food system transformation in Africa. The speakers who have spoken before me have highlighted a number of these, and we are going to spend the next few days exploring this, so I will not spend time on this. New approaches are needed, but also new ways of doing certain things that we've already committed to doing. So I'll just illustrate 2 examples of things that we could do better that would accelerate food systems transformation on the continent. One is accelerated implementation of the African Union Declaration on Land to ensure that we harness African land resources for accelerated transformation of our food systems. The second one is accelerated implementation of the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to ensure that we create conditions that allow us to add value in our agricultural systems. Much more importantly, we do need to secure innovative ways of funding food system transformation across the continent. The United Nations Economic Commission for Africa is committed to working with all of you to explore and facilitate implementation of ideas along all these areas, strategic partnerships, funding models that would accelerate transformation of food systems across the continent. And we look forward to having these conversations over the next 3-4 days and further at the UN Food Systems Summit in Addis Ababa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Obote. As a person in the finance sector and a business reporter, financing is at the core and a pet subject for me. And one of the recent things that has happened in financing, as Dr. Jackson spoke earlier on here, I couldn't help but reminisce just how much WFP, as one of the many agencies or programs around the United Nations, has successfully negotiated in the just completed spring meeting at the World Bank. They've just successfully negotiated a debt for food security swap. So if you are into sovereign debt, you'd understand that. If you understand the structures around sovereign debt, then you'd know that debt swap is one of the options for repayment of either bilateral or debt that is owed towards Bretton Woods institution, in this sense, either IMF or the World Bank. And so for me, when Dr. Jackson was speaking about financing the food sector and financing particularly towards school feeding programs, I reminisced about that. And the reason why I'm bringing out this is because, once again, as a business reporter, as somebody in the finance sector, I have watched closely and followed the proceedings of CADEP, post-Malabo Declaration and the like. And when we were there in January in Kampala at the decade-long meetings that happen regularly under CADEP. I promise this is relevant because of the next speaker I'm going to introduce. We're just taking stock of what steps have been achieved and what is going to happen in the future. Part of those commitments were at least African governments to commit at least 10% of their annual budgets towards development of agriculture, food systems, irrigation, and the like. So ladies and gentlemen, it gives me so much pleasure. Perhaps this next speaker will talk about this and so much more. Allow me now to invite to the stage Ms. Esterine Fotabom, Director of Programs, Implementation and Coordination at the NEPAD Planning and Coordinating Agency, ODA NEPAD. Most welcome. Let me do a bit of incitement. Who runs the world? Who runs the world?
Thank you. Good morning. Honorable Mutai Kagwe, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock Development, the Republic of Kenya, Dr. Stephen Jackson, the Resident Coordinator of the United Nations in Kenya, Mr. Cosmos Obote, the Director, Representative of the Economic Commission for Africa, and my brother, Mr. Khalid Etwell, the Senior Program Coordinator of the UN Food System Coordination Hub. The moderator greeted in all the African languages, and several of the speakers, those who have spoken before me, have greeted you in Swahili or Kiswahili. I'm not going to do that, but I can tell you, having lived here and worked in UNEP for a few years, that I'm definitely looking forward in the next 3 days to enjoy some ugali, some sukuma wiki, some nyamatuma, and some mandazi. Distinguished members of the high-level panel, distinguished UN Food System conveners, it is really a privilege and a profound responsibility for me as an African woman to represent the African Union and the African Union Development Agency at this very important meeting, at this pivotal moment as we convene to shape Africa's contribution to the second United Nations Food System Summit, stock-taking moment, termed UNFSS+4. I think the UN coordinator and Mr. Obote exemplified very simply what the food system means. But as I said, I take this as a privilege but a profound responsibility, knowing that as we speak, we still have increase in malnutrition. We have African smallholder farmers suffering from the impacts of climate change, and the majority of those smallholder farmers are women. They are the ones that put at least 60% of food in African households. So it's not a responsibility that we take at the African Union lightly. From the onset of the UNFS process, the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, in close partnership with the African Union Commission, has played a central role in coordinating the African voice. We supported African Union member states in convening inclusive national food system dialogues, articulating bold visions and pathways, and developing the 2021 African Common Position on Food System. Let me remind you that Africa was the only region to have a common position. This milestone ensured that Africa's unique aspirations and contexts were well reflected in the global discourse and outcome. Today, we gathered with renewed urgency and collective purpose to drive transformation of Africa's agri-food systems into engines of resilience, inclusion, sustainability, and prosperity. The Kampala Declaration of CAADP that was just approved and adopted by our heads of state this last February is our continental framework that aligns this transformation with both the SDGs and African Union Agenda 2063. 4 years after the inaugural UN Food System Summit, Africa has taken decisive steps. The Kampala Declaration and its accompanying strategy and action plan that will run for the next 10 years, beginning 2026 to 2035, mark a shift from agriculture-led growth to a comprehensive agri-food system approach anchored in climate resilience, nutrition, security, and inclusive livelihoods. The declaration sets forth ambitious targets, in total 22 of them, and these include a commitment to increase agri-food output by 45%, reduce post-harvest losses by 50%, and triple intra-Africa trade by 2035 in alignment with the CFTA. Promoting inclusivity by closing the gender productivity gap by 50% and empowering at least 30% of women, youth, and vulnerable groups in agri-food systems. The third ambition is about enhancing climate resilience by ensuring that 30% of agricultural land is under sustainable management and that 40% of households are protected from climate and economic shocks by 2035. Yet, progress requires acceleration. We must urgently address hunger, malnutrition, climate volatility, conflict-driven displacement, and fragmented food value chains, while of course investing in capacities at every level to drive implementation. We are not short of policies, whether at the African level or the global level, the UN level, but I think we are very short in implementation. And I think that is one central theme that we'll be talking in the next 3 days in the road towards Addis. Strengthening accountability, of course, remains central to CAADP, from Maputo to Malabo and now Kampala. Accountability remains central to transforming Africa's food system and our broader food system agenda. The CAADP Mutual Accountability Framework, especially the biennial review process, provides a valuable mechanism to track progress and identify actions or areas for actions. To deepen the effectiveness of transforming African food systems and therefore the implementation of CAADP Kampala, we must elevate multi-stakeholder engagement, ensuring that smallholder farmers, women, youth, and indigenous communities are central to policy design and implementation. We must strengthen private sector leadership, including through the Kampala Declaration proposal to establish a private sector-led agri-food system advisory council. We must harness data and digital technologies to promote evidence-based policymaking and close the information gap in agriculture and food system governance. We must ensure better coordination. 3 weeks ago, I think, we were honored to be hosted by the Republic of Zambia, where all the PSCs in this continent met to reflect on how Kampala will be implemented. And I think that reflection will be convening that in the next 3 days. Transforming Africa's food system will require an estimated $100 billion in public and private investment by 2035. To realize this, we must mobilize climate-sensitive and inclusive financing that prioritize smallholders and de-risk investment through concessional funding and risk-sharing facility. We just heard from the moderator what WFP achieved last week in Washington, D.C. We must invest in regional value chains, including agro-industrial corridors, post-harvest infrastructure, and trade facilitation aligned with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We must explore innovative financing mechanisms such as diaspora bonds, green finance instruments, and blended finance models to crowd in investment for agri-food, small and medium-sized entrepreneurship. Now, going to Addis, what does the continent expect? As we prepare for UNFCCC Plus for stock-taking moment that is scheduled for the 28th to the 30th of July 2025 in Addis Ababa, let us anchor our deliberations around three core pillars. As I said, the Permanent Secretary met, and it's very pleasing to see many of them here today, and also many of the conveners, because we must reflect and have one common message, speaking on how we accelerate implementation of CAADP and the Kampala Declaration by aligning national agri-food system pathways and investment priorities. We can't have this as two different agendas. These agendas must converge at the national level and delivered within the framework of Kampala. Scaling up successes by showing regional innovation from biofortification crops and regenerative agriculture to AI-assisted extension services. We must also foster convergence across sectors and ecosystems, integrating blue and green economies, climate commitment, already colleagues have spoken of COP30, the biodiversity framework, and of course the Africa 2035 Zero Hunger ambition. Colleagues, in closing, the African Union Assembly decision of February 2025 tasked the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, in collaboration with the Commission and the UN Hub, to help lead the coordination of Africa Common Position for the UNFS +4. This is both a mandate and a moral obligation. The Kampala Declaration is not merely a statement of intent, it is a continental covenant, a covenant to transform our agri-food systems so that they nourish our people, drive inclusive growth, and safeguard our environment. But Africa cannot do this alone. To realize the ambition of Kampala Declaration and CAADP 2035 vision, we call upon the global community, development partners, international financial institutions, philanthropic foundations, and the private sector to work together with the African continent to honor financing commitments and increase targeted investments in Africa's agri-food systems, especially in areas that empower women, youth, and smallholder farmers. To support African-led initiatives that align with our own continental frameworks, priorities, and governance structures. To facilitate technology transfer and knowledge exchange, including innovations in climate-smart agriculture, food processing, and digital truth. Promote fair and inclusive trade, ensuring that global trade rules such as WTO and related bodies reinforce rather than hinder Africa's agricultural transformation. Strengthen emergency responses and support to help African countries address shocks from climate, conflict, pandemics, and economic volatility. Together, we can ensure that Africa's food systems nourish generations, empower economies, and protect our planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Estarine Fotabong from NEPAD. One more time, let's give her a round of applause for that amazing speech. Thank you. Now, allow me to welcome our next speaker, and this will be a video played by the media team. And according to the United Nations, over 3 billion people globally cannot afford a healthy diet, and it's such a staggering reality. And it's exactly why food systems transformation is not just a policy conversation, it is a moral and developmental imperative. That is why we are here today, and that demands bold leadership and unified global action. Someone famously said, ending hunger is not a question of charity, it is a question of justice. And so it is truly my honor to introduce a message from one of the world's leading voices in that effort. She'll be joining us virtually with a powerful message that promises to inspire, challenge, as well as anchor our collective mission here today. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Ms. Amina J. Mohammed. Media team, over to you.
Designed to foster the transition to food systems that are more sustainable, resilient, and inclusive. Yet, with just 5 years left to achieve the 2030 Agenda, much more remains to be done to accelerate this transition. Still, progress is underway across all regions, countries, and communities that are embracing food systems as a multi-sectoral priority. In Africa, despite 20.4% of the population facing hunger and 58% suffering from food insecurity, the continent is emerging as a global leader in food systems transformation. The recently adopted Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Programme Declaration and Action Plan sets a bold ambition to increase agricultural output by 45% by 2035, transforming food systems and striving for food security within a decade. The upcoming stocktake is a critical moment to mobilize private sector and regional development banks, including the African Development Bank, to drive real investment in action. Africa must have a strong presence and a unified voice. Let's come together with a clear, ambitious message that delivers real impact. In July this year, we will convene in Ethiopia for the second stocktake of the Food Systems Summit. This will be an opportunity to check in and take stock of how far we have come. More importantly, it will push us to do more, to act with greater urgency. We will focus on motivating the investments we need to accelerate progress. In partnership with our co-hosts, Ethiopia and Italy, we were pleased to recently kick off preparations for the stocktake through a series of meetings with member state representatives and a wide range of stakeholders, including the private sector. This engagement process will embrace the full spectrum of food system actors, enabling us to learn across sectors and borders while forging new ways to collaborate. Above all, the stocktake must inject fresh energy into the movement. The outcome should not be just another policy document, but a set of tangible commitments to action with investments to match, including from the private sector. I have seen firsthand the extraordinary innovations driving food systems transformation, from soup kitchens to resilient farmlands. While governments play a crucial role in shaping national strategies, there is much we can learn from people everywhere. This regional meeting is a vital step in turning knowledge into action and scaling up investments. With only 5 years left until 2030, we cannot afford to slow down. Let us seize this moment to accelerate action on the SDGs and transform food systems for people, for prosperity, and for the planet. Thank you.
Honorable CS, with your permission, and with the existing protocol that have already been established, allow me to invite, again, joining us virtually, the Director for Food Systems Coordinator for the hubs, Stefanos Foutou. Media team.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone from Rome. I hope you can hear me. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. First of all, I would like to apologize because a personal issue kept me away from this meeting in Africa, but I'm really extremely pleased to see how important this meeting has started to be. There's an amazing opening. I'm looking forward to listen to our Honorable Minister. There's a lot of things that have been said so far in the opening. So let me highlight 3 things that I would find extremely important from the meetings we have done so far, and of course for the meeting in Africa. One is that the UNFSS Plus 4, the second stocktake moment of the UN Food System Summit, needs really to demonstrate not only action, but results on food system transformation. We managed 2 years ago in Rome, in the first stocktake moment in July 2023, to really showcase how countries have advanced the agenda of the food systems into their national development plans, into their budgets, and into their governance models. Now it's the opportunity to use the second stocktake moment to demonstrate concrete activity and concrete results and concrete outputs that we have from this transformation. The second element I would like to highlight is that many people were asking me what is the largest outcome of the UN Food System Summit and the UN Food System Summit process. And I would say that the largest outcome for me and the biggest asset we have is the group of the national food system conveners, which together with the global ecosystem support and the UN system are working towards the transformation. We are very pleased to see that the role of the UN Food System national conveners have been institutionalized with governments, and we are very pleased to see this network of the conveners working over the last 4 years and really being the ones that they push the agenda for food system transformation. The third element is that the world that we are living today and the challenges we are facing are quite different from the ones that we were facing in 2021. Unfortunately, I believe that the world is a little bit on a world scale because we see that we are nowhere to achieve any of the sustainable development goals. Important issues that they are related to the food systems agenda, like the food security, the poverty, the hunger, the environmental protection, the social justice are going backwards. So I think that this is an opportunity during, of course, your regional meeting, but also during the UNFSS Plus 4 in Addis Ababa, to really make discussions about the difficult issues that we are facing today and that we will need a very urgent solution. We see global development financing shrinking. We see even a very big challenge to multilateralism. But I think that the food systems agenda and the way that we have worked together the last 4 years, it's one agenda that can showcase that we need to keep investing in multilateralism and we need to keep investing on working all together. I would like to thank very much the government of Kenya for hosting this preparatory event, and also let me thank the governments of Ethiopia and Italy that they have decided to co-host the UNFSS Plus 4. I wish you all the best for these 3 days of meeting. Again, I apologize that I could not be with you, but I'm very sure that you will have a very productive meeting and we will get important messages that we will be using to define the program, agenda, and the preparations for the UNFSS Plus 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stefanos. Pass my greetings to my friend Felix Njumi from Cameroon, who sits in FAO, Italy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to hear from the chief guest. But before we hear from the chief guest, the Honorable C.S. Mutahi Kagwe, I'd like to tell you a story of resilience, a story of grit, literally, a story of children who have weathered the storm of volatility, insecurity, some having been rescued from early marriages to come and be part of a bigger conversation about food security and to pull their part. Ladies and gentlemen, The students or the pupils I'm about to introduce to you are from the Rift Valley of Kenya. They come from Baringo County and they weathered the tough weathers, the insecurity once again, and the volatility in that region to be here with us today. They're about to give us a presentation. They are called the Juhudi 4K Club of St. Luke's Kasitet Primary School, Tiaty Sub-County in Baringo. What makes their story unique is how resilient they have been to be able to join us here today in a United Nations Convention. Ladies and gentlemen, those beautiful boys and girls who you're seeing dressed in yellow are joining us to do us a number here. But as they come, please let us appreciate them and congratulate them for being resilient enough to showcase to us right before the chief guest, the Honorable CS, speaks to us. Wanafunzi wa St. Luke's Kasitet, karibuni sana, uwanja ni wenu.